right, she lost an election, and now she's projecting. Hillary Clinton went on The View this week, which immediately raises a serious question. What's the weight capacity for that stage? But you'll never guess what she talked about. Her love of gardening, the things she does to stay healthy, how much she adores catching and cooking stray kittens. Nah, it was Donald Trump, as expected. But it's like I always tell Taylor Swift, girl, you gotta move on. Seriously, Trump doesn't just live in Hillary's brain. He's built a 500-unit condo with in-unit laundry and a rooftop lounge.
When Hillary Clinton thought her political chapter was fading into history, Greg Gutfeld threw her right back into the headlines. And this time, it wasn't with a polite critique or a cautious remark. No, it was with a full-scale comedic demolition on live television. Gutfeld didn't just question her legacy, he flipped it inside out, tore it apart, and served it to his audience with a grin sharp enough to cut through decades of political spin.
Registered voters said any Republican would be better than President Biden, prompting one woman to legally change her name to N.E. Republican. In Washington, D.C., the giant grocery chain has announced a ban on large bags. Great, now where will I shop, complains one large bag.
For years, Hillary Clinton has worked tirelessly to control her public image. Meticulous speeches, carefully staged candid moments, memoirs polished within an inch of their life, and endless appearances designed to remind America that she's still here. But no amount of polish can withstand Greg Gutfeld's brand of comedy.
Hillary Clinton argues Joe should be, quote, direct and forceful, end quote, against Trump in the CNN debate. Yeah, direct and forceful, just like the noose I put around Epstein's neck. If I did it.
With sarcasm that hits like a hammer and analogies that stick like glue, he stripped away the narrative Hillary has built brick by brick. This wasn't just a roast. It was a revelation. Because Gutfeld's takedown wasn't simply about mocking her pantsuits or speeches, it was about pointing to the contradictions at the heart of her career.
Warning signals that you were gonna lose? Well, too bad you didn't bother to visit the states you ended up losing, you potato-shaped wine bag. But would he even be worse now?
I think that he'd be even worse now. Yeah. Because he was somewhat restrained, believe it or not, in the first term by people who he hired because he thought they would go along with him. And
the Hillary Clinton story, as he framed it, is less about public service and more about self-preservation. Less about championing truth and more about dodging accountability. Picture this. You roll out of bed, check your phone, and there she is again. Another interview, another exclusive book tour, another lecture about democracy. And every time she speaks, the same thought runs through millions of minds. Hasn't this act gone on long enough? That's the mood Gutfeld tapped into.
And, they're going to try to ignore him for as long as they can because they're deathly afraid of him. And they're going to do to him what they did to me in the Democratic primary of 2020, which is pretend you don't exist. And then if people start noticing you, then they will try to smear and cancel and destroy him at all costs.
I remember what Hillary did to you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and she's still standing.
Baseless smears that repeated over and over and over again by the propaganda media until people actually start to believe it, and it starts causing some real damage.
But on the bright side,
he didn't just point at the elephant in the room. He made it dance across the stage. Take her infamous email scandal, for example. Servers in the basement, 30,000 messages accidentally deleted, and a nation left wondering how one of the most seasoned politicians in America could make rookie mistakes with classified information. Gutfeld didn't tread lightly on that subject. He joked that Hillary treats delete less like a button and more like a lifestyle choice. And the audience roared, not just because it was funny, but because they recognized the truth hiding in the humor.
Asking Hillary what will happen if Trump is reelected, which is odd because Hillary's an expert on not getting elected. I wonder, does she think it would end our country as we know it?
I think it would be the end of our country as we know it. And I don't say that lightly. You know, I hated losing, and I especially hated losing to him because I had seen so many warning signals during the campaign.
And then there's Benghazi, a tragedy that raised serious questions about leadership and accountability. Clinton has long defended her role, dodging blame while delivering lines rehearsed enough for a Broadway stage. Gutfeld sliced through that act like butter. He compared her dismissive tone to someone explaining away a kitchen fire while the entire house was collapsing. And in one jab, he said what critics had struggled to capture for years. Hillary Clinton doesn't take responsibility. She sidesteps it. But perhaps what really made the roast sting wasn't the old scandals.
This is why lefties always get all the commencement addresses, and they love to spout their opinions on award shows because they know there's no journalist there that will ask them a question. And the reason why, and he's the perfect example, none of their opinions are actually real.
It was the reminder of 2016, the year Hillary Clinton was destined, according to Hollywood, the media, and nearly every poll, to become President of the United States. The champagne was chilled, the headlines were pre-written, the world was ready. But when the votes came in, the nation delivered a shockwave. Instead of victory, Hillary was handed one of the most humiliating defeats in modern political history. And how did she handle it? Not with humility, not with reflection, but with a blame game that has lasted longer than some TV series. Russia was at fault. Sexism was at fault. Fake news was at fault. James Comey was at fault. Even social media memes made it onto her list of culprits. To Gutfeld, this wasn't resilience. It was denial. He quipped that Hillary's concession speech was less about closure and more about producing the greatest "It Wasn't Me" remix since Shaggy's original hit.
In the Democratic Party's pocket since Hillary stopped having sex.
That's like decades.
Yeah. Losing the union endorsement is like P. Diddy running out of baby oil. There's a whole lot of friction ahead. When Teamsters polled their members about the Dems' new candidate, Cackle's McKnee pads.
And if that wasn't enough, Gutfeld reminded his audience of the Clinton Foundation, the so-called charity that critics argue operated more like a political slush fund. Millions poured in, global elites rubbed shoulders at gala dinners, and yet the world didn't seem any better for it. Greg tore into this with a smile, saying the foundation functioned with all the transparency of a fog machine and the efficiency of a DMV on fire. The crowd howled, not just because it was funny, but because it landed. Everywhere you look in Hillary's story, contradictions pop out like weeds. She claims to be a voice for everyday Americans, yet her Wall Street speeches cost more per hour than most Americans make in a year.
The alleged creator of the plan was Julianne Smith, a Clinton policy advisor that the unclassified Durham report refers to as Foreign Policy Advisor 1. And this woman, look how happy she is. She's like, I got away with everything. I nailed it. And then Obama made me the liaison to NATO. I mean, not Obama, Biden. Like, I continue to get employed by these people because all I do is sit around and do the illicit bidding of my Democrat power boss.
She calls herself a truth teller, yet once claimed to be dead broke while owning more property than most monopoly boards. She positions herself as a champion of democracy, yet treats accountability like it's optional. Gutfeld exposed each of these contradictions with wit sharp enough to feel less like comedy and more like journalism wrapped in punchlines. What makes his delivery effective is the balance between mockery and mirror-holding. Yes, the audience laughs. But beneath the laughter, there's recognition. Recognition that Hillary Clinton has become less of a leader and more of a spectacle. Every staged photo op, every carefully crafted real moment feels more manufactured than authentic. Even the simplest gestures, riding the subway, sharing a beer at a bar, land with the stiffness of a reality show skit. And then came the killer line. Gutfeld compared Hillary's political influence to a curse. Every candidate she endorses loses. Every policy she pushes collapses. He joked that if Hillary endorsed gravity, we'd all be floating by noon. It was savage. It was funny. But most importantly, it rang true. Because it tapped into a pattern the public had already noticed. Before we dive deeper, if you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Join us here at US Today New, where we cut through the noise, expose the truth, and bring you the stories others won't touch. Don't just watch the news, own it. Subscribe today to US Today New and never miss a moment. Now back to the spectacle. Hillary Clinton's saga isn't just about politics anymore. It's about persistence. She keeps coming back like a rebooted series that no one asked for, but keeps getting greenlit. Each memoir is another season premiere. Each interview is another episode in a long-running drama. The problem? The ratings are falling. America has seen this show before, and the reviews aren't kind. Gutfeld hammered this home. He said watching Hillary rebrand herself again was like seeing a VHS tape try to compete with TikTok. Outdated, awkward, and doomed from the start. The audience erupted because they could see it too. Clinton's attempts at reinvention aren't fresh. They're recycled. And recycled politics don't sell in an era where authenticity matters more than ever. Her political career, once seen as unstoppable, now resembles a soap opera stuck on repeat. Each season promises a new Hillary, but what the public gets is the same contradictions, the same talking points, and the same staged moments that crumble under scrutiny. Drinking beer at a dive bar? Staged. Riding the subway? Staged. Spontaneous laughs during interviews? Staged. Even breathing oxygen, Gutfeld joked, looked like it required a focus group's approval. And it doesn't stop there. Remember the endless excuses after 2016? Hillary's list of scapegoats was so long, it could have been published as its own book. One day it was the Russians. The next it was James Comey, then it was fake news. Then it was the patriarchy. Gutfeld turned this carousel of blame into a running gag, comparing it to a bad infomercial. But wait, there's more. But the real sting came when Gutfeld cut through the excuses and reminded his audience of the truth. Hillary Clinton has never truly taken responsibility. Her brand isn't built on accountability, it's built on evasion. Every scandal ends with a press conference, every controversy ends with finger-pointing, and every defeat ends with a speech about how someone else is to blame. And this is why his roast landed so hard. Because people are tired. Tired of the same faces recycling the same lines. Tired of politicians who claim to represent the people, but seem more comfortable at Wall Street dinners than in a diner booth. Tired of scandals, spin, and staged humility. Hillary Clinton has been in the public eye for decades. She's been First Lady, Senator, Secretary of State, and two-time presidential candidate. But after all those roles, all those opportunities, the legacy she's left behind is one of contradiction. A champion of women who dismisses accusers when they threaten her circle. A truth-teller who hides behind technicalities. A leader who struggles to connect with the very people she claims to fight for. Gutfeld captured this contradiction perfectly. He painted her as less of a stateswoman and more of a corporate HR manager with a grudge. A politician who's been around since dial-up internet, still trying to sell herself as the face of change in the TikTok era. The irony, he said, is that Hillary doesn't just spill the tea, she is the tea. Bitter, oversteeped, and impossible to ignore. And the audience ate it up. Because comedy, when done right, does more than make people laugh. It makes them think. It points out the truths polite society avoids. It tears down the walls that spin doctors build. And in this case, it reminded people why Hillary Clinton remains one of the most divisive figures in modern politics. The roast went beyond jokes. It became a mirror held up to decades of political theater. Gutfeld didn't just mock her, he revealed her. He reminded his audience that behind the polished sound bites and choreographed appearances lies a career built less on service and more on ambition. Less on humility and more on entitlement. And here's the kicker. She's not done. Clinton continues to reappear, giving interviews, publishing books, and positioning herself as a voice of wisdom. But each comeback feels less like a revival and more like a rerun. Each rebrand feels less like reinvention and more like desperation.
Gutfeld ended his segment with a punchline that doubled as a warning. As long as Hillary Clinton insists on stepping back into the spotlight, there will always be voices ready to tear away the mask. Because the truth once exposed can't be hidden again, and that's what made this roast unforgettable. It wasn't just entertainment, it was revelation. It was accountability delivered through laughter. And it left Hillary Clinton, once again, scrambling to control a narrative that no longer belongs to her. So, as the curtain falls on this round of the Clinton saga, one thing is certain. This isn't the finale. Not by a long shot, because in the theater of American politics, some characters just refuse to exit. And every time Hillary Clinton returns to the stage, comedians like Greg Gutfeld will be there, ready to turn her performance into the punchline America can't stop watching.